welcome to another episode of Expressions Podcast. I'm super excited today because I have two guests from We Split the Party on YouTube. They are a D&D podcast. Little known fact about me, I love D&D. I'm super into it, so I'm really excited to get into this conversation today. But before we do that, before I say hi to our two guests, I'd love to say hi to Mark. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well today. I've been, as we were talking about before we went live, been watching the news from Southern Ontario and everybody digging out. The 401, I understand it is closed. So I saw a lot of videos from early this morning where everybody was stranded on the highway. And here in Thunder Bay, we had no snow today. So it was a little different watching that.
Yeah, it's wild. Like my driveway, Andrew was shoveling everything up, and I came out to help him for a bit, but I was so tired. And then later on in the day, I look outside, and the piles are maybe almost 5 feet high of snow. So it's crazy.
Snowmageddon.
Snowmageddon. So. Again, I'd like to get back into this. I'm super excited to have both Mark Aaron Newman and Emily Ruffley today from We Split the Party, D&D podcast. I'm super excited to get talking to you guys. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited about you here. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks for being here.
No problem at all. For our listeners, basically, we are a creative podcast. We talk to all sorts of different types of creators, and this is an avenue of creativity that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time because it's something pretty close to my heart. For you guys who are seasoned D&D players, could you guys explain a little bit about D&D and kind of what goes into it? Why I guess it's a very creative avenue to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I feel like anyone who plays D&D is just naturally creative. If you're a DM, you're creating a world full of vibrant characters and different environments, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. And then as a player, you're creating a character that is usually there's always a part of yourself in the character, so it's kind of like acting to me. You're learning how to role play, or you're learning how to kind of collaborate with other artists to tell a story, which I think is really fun. So I just think it's inherently creative.
That's so much of it is that aspect of collaborative storytelling for me. Working as a group and telling a story when you can't really control the story either is such an amazing, intense process, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. As a player, I think it's mind blowing. I don't think I could ever be a DM myself, a dungeon master, person that runs the game, creates the world, because there's so much thought and storytelling and character building and world building that goes into that. And then as a player too, it's a very creative mindset to be in. And as Emily was saying before, there's a part of yourself in that character. And sometimes it's hard to find where your personality stops in this character. Sometimes it kind of takes over, and you become really emotionally attached to these characters, for sure.
After playing for years with a particular character and kind of getting into their shoes and seeing how they work, it can become really scary to kind of navigate, what is a dangerous world that, can potentially lead to a character's, untimely demise. And that stuff can really, it can stick with you for months. If something unfortunate happens, or even if something great happens, it can stick with you for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So Emily and Mark, what are your characters' names? And can you tell us a little bit about them?
Okay, so my character's name is Thorn. Her class, if we're talking D&D fancy stuff. Her class is Warlock. So I have another an otherworldly patron that gives me my magic. So it's not something that I'm inherently born with. It's something that I have acquired. Yeah, and she is a half-orc.
My character's name is Joy, and Joy is a tiefling bard. He kind of bards get their magic essentially from like the fabric of arts and yeah, well, they use the arts to kind of pull magic out of the world. Um, Joy in particular uses storytelling as his uh, uh, way of pulling magic from the weave. And he leans into basically the love of his ex or his former partner. That's kind of what he uses to do that.
Very neat, very neat. I was looking through some videos. I watched a little bit about kind of like the 0.5 sessions. I've watched both of those fully through. To my understanding, Mark, one of your characters, I believe, died earlier on.
Yeah,
Episode
yeah.
1.
Episode 1. So this is the funny thing about creating these characters is I spent months leading up to the podcast creating a character with this backstory and talking about their family and how they got to where they were and their fears and joys and things that they didn't even know about themselves yet. And first episode, he beefs it just right out of the gate, and you can't plan for that, and it's kind of caused the whole podcast to immediately take this hard right turn. And I had 2 weeks after that to create a whole entire different character. But that was, I mean, a very unique experience. I've never had that happen before, especially not live and on the internet. My failings are there for everybody to see now.
No, it was perfect.
So,
Just
so
added
once,
so much drama to the story.
so what's your character for our viewers that wouldn't know? So once your character dies in the game, your character's done. You can't recycle that character.
There are ways to bring a character back to life, but at first level where we started, that those options aren't open to us.
Okay.
And as time goes by, more of those options start to close, and so it seems very unlikely that this character is ever coming back. And now we're kind of, I mean, it's a dreadful storytelling in a way to open up all these avenues to what is a life and drop all these hints and then immediately shut the door on those right away because you're never going to get a chance to explore those. And so we've had to be creative about that and finding new ways of exploring this character that we hardly ever met, really.
Fair enough. So for you, you've put all this work and effort into building this character and building a backstory.
Yeah.
And this is the way my mind works. So now you have to create another character.
Yep.
So would you then take that backstory and create a character that came out of it to come forward and maybe be another person, like from the bloodline or from a family or a community or whatever?
I mean, there's often jokes about that kind of way of handling it. I know that there are people who will always, I mean, they're talking about Lord of the Rings where like Boromir died and then Faramir came out of the woodwork and has all the same qualities. And so it's like a D&D character who's died and the next person just brought in an exact carbon copy of the character and said they're continuing the story. That's an option, but it's, for me, it's a bit of a cop out. You're telling a new story now.
Yeah, and I would think too, like maybe it wasn't that particular character. I'm not saying like a carbon copy, but somebody from the backstory. Like maybe it was a cousin. So instead of being a bard, maybe then it's the cousin that was the barbarian or something like that. Right?
Totally.
So I'm not sure whether you've got barbarians in yours, but they were.
We do. We have a great barbarian in Mary. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely an option. I didn't end up taking that route. I decided to do something completely different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I do find it interesting that both of you have characters that are magic, as opposed to being fighters or thieves or archers or something like that. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, we do have a relatively magic heavy party.
Okay,
we have
very cool.
one barbarian right? And she's technically our only like melee martial class. Technically, Mark's original character was a monk, I
Yeah.
believe, right? So yeah, you would have been a martial class too. But we have a druid, a wizard, a warlock, and a bard, and then a
Yeah.
barbarian.
Yeah. It's actually magic plays a bit of a unique role in We Split the Party specifically. Our DM has kind of created a world where magic essentially had left the world for 100 years and has just seen a resurgence in the last 7 years, and we're kind of not sure what it is. And so in our backstories, I think that kind of pulled all of us together in this way that we could feel safe as a party because we all had that, magical leaning. So it worked from a storytelling point of view as well.
That's very cool. That's
That is
awesome.
cool. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Mark, you mentioned earlier that before we started recording that you dabbled a little bit in D&D years ago when you were younger. What kind of character did you play back then?
I'm trying to remember. I probably had so I when I get into a fantasy realm, when I start to think of things like that, I try to go as far left as I can, or if I don't call it, I don't want to call it left or right. Somebody might think I'm talking politically here, but so and it's as far into the outfield as I can, so that it's so much not like me. Like I'm always the conservative one. I'm always the one, like. If somebody's going to get caught for something, it's me, right? So I always try and have that character. Like if I'm thinking of a fantasy, it's always that person that is so far removed from what I am. So usually it was some sort of a fighter, whether it be a barbarian or I dabbled in having thieves and things like that would steal. And there was I think when we were talking earlier, you talked about a campaign that was a complete party kill. And one of the ones we did, I was a thief, and I had stolen some sort of a flaming thing and put it in a bag of holding. I'm not even sure that these are still things that just
They absolutely are.
what I'm remembering from my childhood, because it was like grade 7. So like I said, 20 years ago.
This story could have happened like 3 months ago, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't have blinked an eye.
And so something happened, and I had like this lamp, and like I'm thinking like a lamp, like a table lamp. So there was something that was drawing the party in. So I reached in my bag of holding, I grabbed this lamp, and they said, "Well, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, turn it on so that we can see." And it was drawing us in. They said, "Well, what do you do?" And I throw it. Well, of course, it's an oil lamp. And of course, the DM rolls, and I cover everybody in oil, and the lamp is on, so it's lit. And of course, now everybody's on fire, and they're like the entire party died, and they're all just like,
Yeah.
really? And I'm like, yeah, you guys weren't doing anything. They're like, we couldn't. You were the only one that wasn't being drawn because you were the thief. And I'm like, I don't know. So we're done, right? We were, I don't know, half an hour into the campaign or something, and that was probably the last game I played. It was pretty demoralizing.
This is incredible for me though, because this speaks to like the power of this like collaborative storytelling is that you still remember the story very distinctly from 7th grade, from the one time you played D&D in the past.
Yeah.
Like that is so many times where we can be sitting in a group of us and just talking about this one thing that happened in, we still talk about, the death of Echo because it was such a ridiculous thing to happen. And what happened with Thorn afterward, Emily's character, was like, I still get excited about this, in the middle of the night sometimes. Like it's really cool. I don't know if like you want to say what happens.
Oh yeah, so because like part of my character is I have a wild magic table, which means I can roll wild magic surges, but I don't know what spell I'm gonna cast. I also cast spells at levels that I shouldn't be able to by using this table, and I rolled basically an impossible roll in the first game. I rolled as well as I could on the table, and then I had to roll a D100, and I got a 100. So if he was going to be revived, it would have happened.
Yeah.
It was not meant to be.
It was close. Yeah.
Yeah, so close. And it's like that's like a 1 in a million shot. Like you do not roll 100 ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially, live and on camera.
Yeah, game 1. It was great.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I've heard about the wild magic table, and I think that's very, very, very interesting, and also high risk, high reward type of
Yeah.
situation.
Oh yeah.
It's a fun mechanic if you enjoy chaos, which I do.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, so like I think that just in general, like we're all talking about our stories and that kind of thing. If you guys are curious, like the character I regularly play is a changeling.
Yeah.
And
Ballsy.
it's
Oh, cool.
I am multi-classed as well, so I'm a bard initially, like Joy, and then I multi-classed into warlock.
Hell yeah.
Oh, cool.
So it's like a combination of what you guys have there as well. So it's kind of cool, and it's very interesting. Like my backstory of how I'm multi-classed into warlock really tied into my story, because I was like in this forest, it's magical and that kind of thing. I got really attached to the story, to the forest, to the origin of that. The magic that came out of that, and because of that attachment, I got powers from the forest, and that's how I class into warlock. So
Nice.
it's it's super fun. I'm kind of like geeking out about all this stuff.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. So, out of curiosity, like, you guys are also a podcast as well. Do you guys, like, we're recording virtually right now, and I've seen bits of your podcast. Do you guys all get together in one spot to record? It looks like you do in the videos.
Yeah, we
Yes.
do. So we're working out of a studio in Toronto.
Okay.
And then they have all the cameras set up. We have our set set up. We're all together in the same room, so it's like it's a full production.
Yeah, I mean, we would be amiss not to mention the fact that we have an incredible crew of people. More crew than we deserve, more dedicated than we'll ever deserve. They are, amazing. They come in early to set up cameras for us and check sound equipment. They do live camera switching and sound effects and music and everything. And it's a huge production that we really don't deserve, but we love them for it.
That's amazing.
That sounds pretty cool. I think Aurora will have to make sure when this episode gets posted that we put a link to their podcast below.
For sure. Actually, I was going to do a screen share.
Perfect.
So let me see if I can get this going here. Share screen window.
You guys got me excited when you talked about warlocks, but for me, warlock usually means something different because the guitar over my shoulder here, that's a warlock.
Oh yeah, it is a cool
Is the
guitar.
warlock. So, yeah.
So I guess I'm sharing the screen now. You guys can see this, right?
Yeah, we can see. Yeah.
So your podcast is We Split the Party. I know you guys are on YouTube. Are you on any other platforms?
We're on Twitch, Spotify, basically anywhere you can get a podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of things going on. But usually, like, people will either watch live on YouTube or Twitch, and then all of the videos go onto YouTube.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you record live, and then you and you stream it at the same time. So there's viewers live watching it.
Yeah.
It's super fun. And you get to see like the people talk in chat. Like I don't watch while we're playing the game, but I'll watch the episodes after to see what everyone's saying.
Watching people kind of get excited for our terrible decision making is just an incredible experience. It's so fun. And like the memes that are generating around our characters as well. Never would have expected that, but it's also a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I saw some fan art and stuff as well on your Instagram feed, which is really cool. You guys got fan art going.
I'm spoiled with fan art, and I like it.
It is a kind of a shocking experience when you see these like pictures. We had I'm missing the word all of a sudden. When people write fan literature about your characters,
fan fiction.
Fan fiction. we've had fan fiction about our characters get sent to
Wow.
us, and that is, and none of it's lewd, which is even more.
Hey, we're just getting started, okay? I'm
I'm looking
sure
forward to the first one that
it's gonna involve Cal. We
yeah.
all know it.
hurts when I receive it, but until then, I it's really fun to read this,
Wow.
and people really kind of understanding your character too. It's really satisfying to realize that you've kind of communicated, their values to people.
Yeah, it's nice when your character like resonates with another person,
Yeah.
because it's just nice to share something with someone else, even if it's like through video or a podcast or.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think yeah, go ahead, Mike.
it's a story, right?
Mhm.
So you're creating a story, and the story unfolds for your viewership. So that they're creating fan fiction, like any storyteller, any author, any movie producer that screenwriter. They've all got people writing fan fiction and doing fan art for those characters. So it would sort of make sense, because what you're doing is you're entertaining people with your story, and people are living vicariously through you. So
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool when you tell me that all this is happening, and that you've got fan fiction coming in and whatnot. That's pretty cool.
We're so fortunate. Like I can't even describe how lucky I feel to be a part of this group, and to have the fans that we have, and have the viewers that are always watching every single time we go live. It's incredible.
How many people are in your group that like actual players and dungeon master?
There are 6 of us who are currently playing, 1 dungeon master and 5 players.
Okay.
And then we have probably 6 crew that are there every time, and a total of 12 people that help out behind the scenes in some way.
Okay. Very cool. And how did, now obviously you mentioned you're all getting together in one sort of studio environment. How did COVID affect this? Like with you guys all getting together as a group?
Well, I mean, but because they've kind of or Alex has set it up where we are a production company, so we kind of fall under in the entertainment field.
Yeah.
So technically, we can still run through COVID. Obviously, now we're doing like rapid tests and things like that when we get to the studio, which I'm not super thrilled about, but I'll do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, rapid test isn't as bad as the full PCR. Like it's a shallow.
You say that, but I
instead
stepped into that studio and they made it sound like I was sticking something so far up my nose.
No,
Yeah.
That I
that's
was touching
smart.
my brain, and I was like, no. I've seen this on the internet.
No, believe me, there's a box of them behind me on the shelf. I mean,
Right.
we do them all the time, and my wife is a nurse, so
There you go.
she's
They're
all-
not as
she-
bad.
We're
She
doing
does
it
them
wrong.
more often than I do, because she sees patients. But
I
Yeah.
genuinely think, you guys
Yeah.
are taking it a little too seriously, and then I'm just like, no, guys, it does not go that far up your nose. I swear to God. I trust the internet. The internet cannot be wrong.
We're not nurses. We're entertainers.
perfect. So, but
Doing our
I guess really to keep going with that line of questioning, how did the cast and the crew react to it? Like, did you have anybody that dropped out because they were nervous and didn't want to come back into the environment where they were close? Have you had any scares?
No scares, and no. I mean, so
Crossed?
we took. Yeah, I know. I'm saying this now. We took some time off during December when Omicron really took off, and a few of our cast came down with Omicron during that time.
Yeah.
But they had all kind of recovered by the time we relaunched in January, and now we're separating our cast and crew. We're masked up when we're not on set, and we're getting rapid tested. It's not a perfect scenario, but we're doing the best we can, and we haven't lost anyone over it.
Okay, that's great to hear.
And we kind of started like during COVID too.
Yeah.
Like there was never a time before COVID where we were in studio together. So I feel like everyone's just kind of used to it at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
I mentioned earlier that I wanted to kind of get into your origin, like how you guys got into D&D. And I guess there's 2 parts to this question. How you guys came to be We Split the Party cast members, and then I guess further to that, how you became interested in D&D and how it became this big part of your life, role playing and all that. We can start with Mark.
Yeah, I only pointed at myself because I kind of was involved in this project a little bit before Emily was.
Whatever. I hadn't met
Yeah,
you yet.
no, I know.
Keep
I'm
bragging.
one of the
It's fine.
We Split the Party OGs, really. So Alex is our DM, Alex Gallagher. We haven't mentioned his name enough. Right now, he is an incredible DM. He's smart as can be. He's super motivated. He's excited. He's created a very large living world that we kind of exist in on the podcast, and so he deserves all the praise in the world because this is all really his vision in the end. I met Alex through Facebook. Me and a friend of mine's, our campaign kind of dissolved suddenly when our DM decided to move back to the UK. And so I saw Alex looking for players because he had just moved to the city. And so I pinged him and we kind of made a party of just three of us. And as Alex was going, he started making other friends and he started pulling them into other campaigns. And then he just basically amalgamated all the campaigns. And in this whole time, we're having so much fun. We really just want to, let's just start live streaming it. Let's just put it live and see what happens. And it was kind of this casual conversation until once again, Alex just took it and ran with it and got excited about it. And, from going to talking about, just live streaming it, we're all of a sudden talking about studios and sets and sound equipment. And it became this massive thing. And it was just exciting for us to be a part of it. And then that's where we got myself and Joelle and Justin, who are also on the podcast as Gilwin and Cal, respectively. We were just all friends playing D&D in a basement for a while. And as we started to grow, we started picking up new cast members, and that's kind of where Emily came in. And I'll let Emily take the story from up from there, I guess.
Yes. How I joined the party. It was a fateful day on Facebook. I know I
ray of
applied.
sunlight.
And Alex had posted just a little blurb on one of the Toronto looking for gamers pages about wanting to start a podcast. And I had already been interested in being a part of a podcast. This is not my first rodeo. The first project didn't really work out. So I was kind of expecting, I applied right away, which was great. But I was kind of expecting, oh yeah, we're just going to be like having microphones in somebody's basement and no one's going to see my face. And it's just going to be like a fun game with some fun new people, hopefully. Honestly, and when you apply to games on Facebook, it's kind of a toss-up. My first DM has warned me that it's like, I am not a basic D&D player. I have a lot of experience. So sometimes you can get games where you're maybe playing with people who don't have as much experience as you, or they're playing in a style that you don't enjoy. So I recommend shopping around. If you don't find the best party the first time around, you'll find one, I swear.
Seconded, yes.
Exactly. So yeah, I was adopted into the party like a stray cat from Facebook. There was a bit of like an auditioning process. I was thrown into a Jumanji themed game that Mark ran.
Yeah, that's right. I ran a one-shot called Demonchi.
It's pretty great.
So
awesome.
Copyrights can't get us.
And then, yeah, they decided they liked me, and now I'm part of the cast.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. Now, when you get together on your Wednesday nights for your gathering, are you continuing the same tale from last time, or are you starting a new adventure?
We're continuing. Yeah, we're moving through the story. We have long-term goals, and we're kind of, sharing bits and pieces of our characters slowly over time. I know that there are people that kind of do that, Monster of the Week style every day, a different one shot. It totally works, but for us, we wanted to kind of tell this long form storytelling that we find very rewarding.
Okay, yeah, because I noticed when I look at your YouTube page, the episodes are all varying lengths. Some of them are around about an hour, but there's a couple that are well over 2 hours. So how does that happen? Does it
combat? 100% combat. If it's longer, there's probably combat in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we record every second Wednesday. and we have a break in the middle of the session. And what we do is we take the first half of the session, release it 1 week, and then the second half and release it the next week.
Okay.
Sometimes we have to cut early because of technical difficulties. Sometimes we have combat, which can get out of hand really fast and go a little bit long. And so there's no real solid measure. We try to keep them at like 2 hours apiece, but it doesn't happen sometimes.
It varies. Like, I mean, it's a freeform storytelling thing, so we don't have kind of like a cookie cutter way to break it down. And the players are not watching the clock. If anything, maybe Alex is. But we try to find a good place to stop for whatever the session is, or like leave a cliffhanger at the end, sort of thing.
Looking desperately for that bookend sometimes.
Yeah. Like, where is it?
Yeah, I can kind of speak to this as well. Like, I play D&D every Saturday with a group of friends, which I've been friends with them for many years now, and it kind of worked out that we were all kind of interested in it. We play board games and stuff, and some games will go like maybe like 2 hours or something like that. Some games will go 5, 6, 7 hours. If we have like a short day where someone needs to go, then we have like an hour session or something like that. And for sure, if there's a big battle, there's combat, the session is super long.
You guys can kind of speak to this as well, but there's a surprising difference between releasing some audio for podcasts for other people as opposed to doing it for yourself. And I can see that there must be a difference between like having a conversation casually with a friend versus actually trying to have something that you can release to the public. And so that has been always on the back of our head of how do we make sure that this isn't masturbatory, for lack of a better word. It's supposed to be fun for ourselves, and we really want to have fun for ourselves, but we have to kind of constantly be thinking of our audience as well.
Yeah,
definitely. Circling back to that question at the very beginning, how did you guys fall in love with D&D in total? Like, how did you find it? How did you discover it?
I think I discovered D&D through my brother, basically. So, like, my brother introduced me to D&D initially. And there was a few years there where, like, I tried a game here and there, but I never really fell in love with a campaign or, like, found a dungeon master that I wanted to play with for, like, a long period of time. I was working at a car factory, and it gave me a lot of time to listen to, like, other D&D podcasts. So I would say that's kind of how I fell in love with it, just listening to other creators and kind of just how they were, putting it out there in the world. And then I met my first like long-term DM, Hunter, on Facebook as well. We were a part of a Dungeons and Dragons gifting group. So you would like send a book to someone and they would send you a book, or you would send them dice and then someone else would send you dice. So I sent him a birthday gift, and about a year later, he is a professional DM. So he is hosting like pay-to-play games online. And over COVID, he was kind of wanting to test out some new one-shots for free, just try to get people into the game. So I applied for one of his games, and then we started a campaign, which lasted about like a year or so. And then, now I'm addicted to D&D. And if people don't like that, that's fine. I am living my best life.
And that's what it's all about, right? If you're happy, then who cares what everybody else thinks?
Exactly.
So you're not hurting anybody, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's nice. It's like it's a fun hobby that doesn't harm anyone, and it allows me to be creative, which I enjoy, and I get to connect with people that maybe I haven't met in person. I'm going to Hunter's wedding. We have not met in person yet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Very cool. So you said there that it doesn't harm anybody, and I'm gonna, first off, I agree with you. I think it's a fantasy realm. It's made up. It's the story that you guys are all interacting with. You're sort of when I was a kid, there was the choose your own adventure books where you had the choices and you flip back and forth.
Exactly.
I think those are still a thing. Now, with that said, obviously you're pretty free in talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and you're talking about wizards. Have you run into anybody who finds out, or you're talking about it, and they sort of are shocked that you're playing that type of game, and they don't agree with the game or the lifestyle that they feel that it portrays?
I mean, this was a bigger problem in like the 80s and 90s with all the satanic panic. But I mean, the closest I can say is I had to explain it to my family for quite a long time before they're like, and people are watching you do this, and I'm like, yeah, and they're enjoying this. And I'm like, yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of D&D is something that you have to play. You have to get into it. And you have to be lucky to get into it, because there's so many people I know who had a bad experience the first time and never went back. Yeah, it is normal, because you know, no matter what hobby you get into, there are people who are just, bad people.
Yeah, or the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're
absolutely.
new, you're not worth my time. Yeah, I get that.
Totally. Or they use D&D for nefarious purposes to fulfill a power fantasy of theirs alone, and you have to kind of find a group that cheers on each other as much as they're looking to fulfill these fantasies themselves.
Yeah.
You can get very much unlucky when you're looking for these groups.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once you do find that connection, I'm convinced that D&D is for everybody. There's something in there for everybody. For me, it's role playing and storytelling. I love that aspect of surprising my friends and telling something that they never heard before. There are things for the numbers geeks who just want to min-max a character that can break the game. My friend Todd being one of them, who just wants to make it difficult for the DM. But there's something in there for everybody.
Yeah, and like staying on that note, it's like I don't want to say there's like bad D&D players, but there are some people who play D&D for the wrong reasons. Because when you're playing D&D properly, in my opinion, it's like you're still allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and like you want to collaborate with these other people. So if you get shut down or someone is abusive towards you, like I would say, that's not the right party for you. First of all, put your boundaries down, because you're allowed to have boundaries when you play D&D. And consent is important. If someone does something that you have not consented to, they're a bad person. And you should not be playing with them. Move on.
Regardless of what they've done that you didn't consent to, it doesn't matter what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's something good D&D players talk about before they start the game, right?
Okay.
I think some people get into D&D and don't have those discussions, which is an issue. I've had players in other games be like, you always want to be emotionally invested, but there's a line where it becomes like the line of reality and the game start to blur, and then they just become obsessed with it and they can't let it go. If something bad happens in the game, they're miserable for weeks. I'm like, there is that kind of bleed that I don't enjoy.
Okay.
Some people do, and D&D is not a replacement for therapy. Are we all working out our issues? Yes, but we should do so safely.
It's funny that like Emily mentions that, because all my characters, there's a little piece of like something about myself that I'm not super comfortable with, that I'm kind of looking to explore in that way. And that's a big nugget of where I get character ideas from, is just being like, what's going on there with myself? What happens when I take that notch and I put it into a new person and turn it up to 100?
Yeah.
What comes out of that? And it can be a great learning experience. But yeah, you have to constantly be aware of the other people in your group and making sure that you're not hurting them or making them uncomfortable throughout the whole process. Session zeros, guys. Do your session zeros.
Very important.
That's your pre-session where you talk about what you're comfortable with. Super important for new groups to do that. I recommend it for everybody.
Excellent.
Yeah, I really do feel like it is an emotional game. Like, you connect to your character, you put a little piece of yourself into that, but then if you're having a bad day, or let's say your DM is having a bad day or something like that, that can't bleed into the game, because if it does, then that's when you get that bad experience that Mark had, and I have had some of that, and in some games after playing for 3 years consistently, there's really great games. Most of the time, it's really really great games, and then there's other games where it just seems a little off, seems a little like unbalanced a bit, and it's because of one reason or another, right? So it's really really interesting to kind of see that, and it's important to revisit that too. Like, yes, have a session 0, but every once in a while check in again with your team, with your group, outside of actually playing. And even like my DM likes to do like these after session talks. He likes to hear about how we felt about what went on the game, what we liked, what we didn't like, whatever. And I think that's really really good to put into that, because then there's an open line of communication of maybe we didn't feel so good about one thing, but we really really loved this part of the story, it's part of the arc, and he adapts things to that, and it's really great.
Yeah, because I feel like the DM wants to create a game that the players want to play, right?
Yeah.
So if you can have that open line of communication, it definitely facilitates that and makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
I would see that. Like you kind of surprised me when you said you knew the one DM that does the pay to play online, and I thought, what? I mean, I don't know why I never thought that would be there, but when you said it, it just completely makes sense. That why would you not have that? But for that particular person, if he's got customers coming in that don't have a good time, and his whole thing is, oh yeah, I took down three parties today and complete total kills. What fun is that for you as a player? Like you have to be able to advance as a player as well. And if he's not allowing for that advancement, then it's no fun. So you really have to be good at the craft, and really as the person that's interweaving that story, you have to be good at it. So
I'm convinced you can't DM without it becoming like an absolute gift that you're giving to your players. Like, you put so much work into the story, you put so much work into like the plot points and the beats and the surprises and the characters that you create, and the I don't know, the silly voices and the miniatures you paint and the terrains you build, and all these parts. It involves so much work just to do a 4-hour session, that I think the best DMs are just creating something for their friends, and that's what it feels like working with Alex all the time. It's like he's created something for us. He's created a toy box for us to play in.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome.
That is cool.
I do kind of want to touch on the aspect of D&D that isn't actually the role playing or the storytelling. Mark mentioned earlier the miniatures and the little things, the dice, that kind of stuff. I mean, realistically, to play D&D, you realistically only need a DM who can build a world, create characters, and all that kind of thing, and a bunch of willing role-playing characters. You can use online dice. You can build maps online with like tools like Roll20, or even just like drawing something and putting it up on Discord. Like it's a very cheap and easy game to get into without having to invest so much. But if you're really into it, there's the other side, where I've seen people I've played with who have hundreds of dice and all these little miniatures and maps that are completely hand drawn and stuff like that.
Like any good nerdy hobby.
Yeah.
It can be expensive.
Yeah. How about that for you guys? Like, are you super into buying dice or little miniatures or drawing maps, or is it more about the storytelling?
I spend all my money on fan art of my own character. Legitimately. I love it so much. I love just like, my friends are great artists and I love paying them to make my character a reality on paper, because it's just so nice to like visually see what your character looks like from inside your head to on paper, or even see someone else's interpretation of your character.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite thing. Like, I have dice, but I don't have that many dice.
Emily and I realized something just a couple of weeks ago, that we are the two cast members of We Split the Party that suffer from aphantasia. So neither of us can actually imagine things in our own heads. When we are imagining like even the basic things like a star or something like that, we just can't come up with anything at all. It's all just black. It's somewhat common. A lot of people actually suffer from it, but it's funny that both of us love seeing pictures of our characters because we can't actually imagine that in our own heads.
I've never heard of that. Although now that you've said it, I can think of one. Like, because now would that go into like when you look up at the sky and you see a cloud? Do you not see a dolphin or a whale or a?
Oh, I can see a dolphin or a whale when I look at a cloud. It's just if I were to think about what that dolphin looks like after closing my eyes, I could not imagine that.
Okay, so if you're reading a book and they describe a character, you can't. Your mind's eye doesn't give you that character.
No,
not really. I get like especially when they describe characters in books, I can see the color of their hair.
Yeah.
But when you get to like facial features, it's a bit of a blank slate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I don't picture an actor or anything. I feel like some people see things in their mind like it's beautiful HD, and for me it's like, oh, I can picture a banana, but if it's a monster banana with teeth, like I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, we were doing this on the cast. We're like, can you imagine a field? And like, yeah, I can imagine grass and like the wind's blowing through the grass. And I'm like, no, I got nothing. Like, I got vaguely maybe the color green. I don't know.
Yeah, and I just see like photos that I've seen before.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because like I think about like when I read a book, I can envision that character.
Yeah.
Like the biggest letdown for me was when Interview with the Vampire came out and Tom Cruise was Lestat. It doesn't look like him, and so that was, and even my wife said that's not what I envisioned Lestat.
Yeah, and see, I never have that disappointment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Harry Potter movies are never a lot for me.
Wow. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, but we were.
So would you say that like that stifles you guys in playing, or is it just like you take it to that extreme where you ask for that that friend of yours who does art to make the character and then you can see it in your head?
Yeah, because I feel like it's easier for me to relay the idea of what I think she would look like and have someone else interpret it because I am unable to interpret it myself. Alex did a lot more work on my familiar than he probably needed to because I couldn't visualize what I wanted it to look like because I had no frame of reference for what a small fantasy creature should look like.
Okay.
Because I'd never seen a picture of it. I also couldn't build my own mini. He built my mini for me.
That's awesome.
That is cool.
Role playing isn't really a problem for me because I essentially just put myself in their shoes. Mm-hmm. It's not so much of me imagining what they would do, but just being what they would be doing. Yeah. And it means that my characters probably have more of myself in them than I would have otherwise liked them to have. But it makes it really easy and rewarding to role play because it's kind of like my imagination all of a sudden now that I'm just pretending to be something I'm not. I'm embodying them by taking on their mannerisms and their posture and even how they like hold their jaw when they're in a tense argument, like that kind of stuff. You will see me when I'm on stream. Like if somebody says, "Oh, something's over your shoulder," I will like actually look over my shoulder, even though it's a green screen. But it's just how I get into my character.
That's neat.
That is interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah, really. I guess it really gets you into the role play itself. Yeah.
Becoming the character. That's neat.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah. Oh, have you lost Aurora?
That's just your camera.
No, I'm still on. For some reason, it just shut off.
Yeah. So usually I'm the one with the cheapest camera, and mine never cuts out. But the
hey, you're making it work.
Yeah.
That's right. Little reset. So we've gone. We're coming up to 50 minutes here. Did you want to do the 3 questions, Aurora?
Yeah. So we're coming to a close, but before we do that, Mark, do you have any last questions you want to ask?
No, I'm good. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you guys being here.
Well, thanks, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being on.
I see your kitty, Emily. What's your kitty's name? That's
my kitty who is down here is Marshall. He's very, very cute. Come here, buddy. He'll allow me to pick him up. The other one is a little... she doesn't like to be picked up. I can hold her for like 30 seconds and then she's like, I'm out.
There you go. See that, Aurora? I just got you a cat on the screen.
Yes. Yeah, we were talking about cats earlier before you came on, Mark, and
It's quite an elaborate cat tree. I see there.
Yeah, it's falling apart. Like I really need to get a new one, but I'm just I'm waiting till that one falls over.
Make the most use of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If a cat tree falls over, it just becomes a different cat tree.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if there's no one in the room, does it make a sound? That's it.
No.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I had, I guess, one last quick question before we get into the 3 questions. What would you say is kind of your most? Oh my goodness, what's going on with my camera? I guess we'll just go with my audio because my camera is probably going to cut out in this last bit here. I don't know what's going on with it. But what is your most, I guess, proud moment in the campaign that you're in right now? What is that moment that you go back to and your character like just won the situation, or you were really emotionally connected? What would that moment be?
I think that my proudest moments are all in specific interactions I've had with different players. I can't think of a one moment where like Joy really came into his own and became where he had a defining moment yet, because we are kind of still early on this. But I think that what I'm proud of is that interaction where I can see his opinions kind of coming out a little bit more, especially with his interactions with Thorn, Emily's character, and Cal, which is Justin's character. Because with Thorn, I found him taking on this like confused, almost caretaker role, based off of his past relationship, which was with another half orc. And so when he saw this, teenage half orc, he kind of felt responsible for her all of a sudden. So that was kind of like a moment which I didn't see coming, but it just kind of came up organically. And then with Cal, because I think Cal's a bit of a blowhard. I think that he's not here, so I could say that. I think that Joy likes to take the piss out of him, and I think that in our normal interactions, Justin is the one that pushes my buttons all the time, and so in character, when I get to push his buttons instead, it's very rewarding.
It is very funny when it happens.
What about you?
Oh man. Anytime I can make Alex sweat, even just a little as DM, I'm like,
Yeah.
I have achieved my goal for the day. When he like, there was one combat scenario where he could have killed me. It was this close, but he didn't. And I am incredibly proud that I survived.
Oh wow, that's when you're. I like that you can sort of play back and forth and like to see you make the DM sweat. So that's that's a good one there, because quite often it's them making you do all the sweating. So it's always good to have that.
Yeah, I think that that's the gold standard, is that he's kind of we're living in his world, right? And so when we can surprise him with something that we've done, there's no better feeling than that.
It's super, super fun. Or like how Justin regularly out talks Alex and gets exactly what we want. And I'm like, this is great. I stole a bag of holding by accident.
Yeah, I think we had a moment after we broke that day, because we were like, oh wow, we didn't expect your character to steal that highly expensive item, and you're like, I didn't think I stole it. That was an accident.
And now, how do you steal something by accident?
So genuinely, as a player, I thought he was giving it to us. So I asked for the bag. Okay. Assuming that it was being given to us, and then he's like, "Oh,
it was like a store owner told us like, oh, go downstairs and you can purchase this item downstairs." Emily went and thought that this owner of this business was offering it for free, and so she told the person working behind the desk there that, oh, it's for free, and made a deception check that she wasn't expecting to have to make, but she actually succeeded, and then walked away with it before realizing what had happened.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. It's akin to having somebody at the superstore load a TV into your car for you that you didn't pay for.
Yeah,
Just sort of, hey,
exactly.
help me with this.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's wearing the reflective vest when you walk into the Best Buy, right? You can just walk out with anything.
Perfect.
this is the How to Steal Things podcast now.
Yeah,
Yep.
perfect. Yeah,
I'm regularly asked to roll for cuteness.
Okay. Perfect. Hopefully Aurora's technical difficulties will have her come back on, because she's on the control end of things when
Oh goodness. You know what? It's
we're
the
here.
magic of editing, you know.
That's right.
No
Which
one
is-
will ever know.
We could have a D&D podcast in this stream right now.
Yeah.
just start a whole new campaign right now while we're waiting for Aurora.
It does happen periodically. So basically what we'll do is we'll get into the questions. So the first one is we talk about, because Aurora and I are both photographers, and when we talk photography, a lot of times that we have, like, there's always a what's in your bag. So what's your tool to trade? So for you guys as role-playing characters, what's that one tool that you use to create? And it doesn't have to be a physical tool. It could be anything. So one thing that you have with you when you're starting on a new campaign.
Notebook.
Notebook,
Everyone
okay.
can attest that I am the most meticulous note taker that we have on the cast. I write everything down, and it kind of falls on me to kind of regurgitate these plot points later.
Yeah.
But it's, you don't want to be stuck in a situation where your character should know something, like the person they met yesterday, when in actual fact it was a month ago in real lifetime. And for me, it breaks immersion. So I want to have those notes, complete and available to me at all times.
Okay, excellent. And then Emily, what about you?
I think it's a really good tool to just ask other people questions. Like when I'm trying to connect with someone else's character, I'm going to ask them a question about their character in character.
Okay.
Because it's a really easy way to get people to engage in role play with you.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's for people who are like new to improv or role play too. Yeah. It's just it's a simple but easy tool to get them in character and then, get them talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the biggest part.
Yeah. Excellent. That's excellent. So the next question that we have is, what is your jam? So what is that one song that just gets you going? You're having an off day, or you're a tired day, or you've got to get into something. What's that one song you can put on that just gets you moving?
Yeah, go for it. Right?
I'll go for first. Go. Yeah, so I'm gonna give a shout out to a big piece of an album that I actually based the character of Joy off of. Are you writing this down now? You didn't know this, did you?
No.
There's an album by a Vancouver artist called Dan Mangan. It's called Nice, Nice, Very Nice. Okay. And within it, he talks about there's a few things of a person losing their memory and kind of like holding on to like the last kind of fragments of it, as well as Emily's mind is blown right now, as well as what it's like to be on the road and have it be very difficult for them. And so a lot of the songs that Joy sings while he's kind of going about his day are actually songs that are referencing songs on that album. So that was a big part of my creative process there.
Cool.
For the one song that gets me hype, MF Doom's Rhymes Like Dimes. Okay. It's the one rap song I know start to finish, all the words, and it gets me so excited when I do hear it.
Excellent. Excellent. And Emily, what about you?
Okay. It's probably one of my nerdier answers. I do not play League of Legends. Just putting that out there. But any of the KDA music that they put out is my jam. I love that music. That'll get me super hype right away.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And then Aurora, did you want to do the challenge question?
Yeah, I did. I so apologize for that, guys. Like my computer just like completely shut down for no reason. So I'm back on with my phone and everything's okay. So thanks for holding on there for me.
No
problem.
We could cut it out in post, right?
Yeah.
Well, we just sort of kept going. We kept going with the questions, so we can.
Yeah.
It shows that we're live here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So our last question, you actually already know. So what would you challenge our viewers to do? It can be any kind of challenge. I know you already put a challenge out in our show notes. Yeah, what would you challenge our viewers to do?
Yeah, so I think we are challenging the viewers this week to essentially create their own character. There's several ways you can go about this. D&D Beyond is a really good resource if it's your first time creating a character. It makes it really simple for you. That, or if you have a friend with the player's handbook that walks you through all the steps, you can do that on paper if you're not comfortable doing it on the computer. Mark, you got any other tips for character creation?
Yeah, think about what actually makes your character tick. Because when you go through the player's handbook, you're going to create a lot of things like, your race and class. Think about what that all means to your character. There's a new section in the character creators these days where they talk about ideals, bonds, and flaws, which I think is incredible, and it's a great tool. So talk about what is in a perfect world, what does your character believe in? Who are they connected with? Who do they feel that bond with, as it were? And then what are their flaws? And give yourself real flaws, not like they're a bit of a perfectionist sometime. No, like real things. I have a character who's self-righteous, who thinks that you always know what's best for everybody else, and it can grind on people, but that's what gives a character depth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that definitely brought out my personal character's quirks and really brought her to life. Was bonds and flaws, and one of them is like, as a changeling, like it's actually kind of dangerous in most D&D campaigns to be a changeling. So they often have this alter persona, which is, mine's an elf, right? That they are all the time. And one of my faults is actually I can get distracted if I find like a particular person is really beautiful and I start changing some of my features to match theirs.
Yeah.
Cool.
And throughout the campaign, people have discovered, like people that maybe shouldn't have discovered that I'm a changeling, kind of put one and two together. But then I came to learn that is probably not the best thing to do, and she's actually learning and growing and trying to get rid of that fault, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it really adds depth to your character, finding their ideals and their flaws.
For sure.
Yeah, and D&D and Beyond, which Emily mentioned earlier, is definitely a great resource. It has all the characters I've ever played, and you can go really in depth in that. So yeah. So this has been awesome, guys. I've been super happy to have you guys on. This is a topic, like I said earlier, that's super close to my heart, and I wouldn't have had anybody else on the show. You guys have been great. So
thanks.
I really, really appreciate that. And before we get going, where can our listeners or viewers follow you guys? First for We Split the Party, and then personal accounts, if you want, as well.
Twitch.tv/We Split the Party. You can catch us every second Wednesday. Next recording. I guess this isn't going live today. February. Okay, let me go back to Emily, and I'll find the next time it's actually live. After I got to do some math real quick.
Yeah, he'll figure it out. But yeah, you can basically find We Split the Party on all social media. We have a Twitter, a Facebook, a website. We also have our Instagram. YouTube and Twitch is where we go live. Mark will definitely be giving those dates because he's better at math than me.
Catch us this Wednesday, February the 9th. We'll be recording again.
Perfect. Nice. And then my personal social media is at Primrose in Neverland on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And then Mark's on Instagram too, but
Yeah, I'm File Cake. It's mostly pictures of latte art.
Perfect.
And before we get going, I'd like to also say to our viewers, Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, or listen to us on Spotify, share wherever you can, and thanks again for listening, and thanks again, Emily and Mark, for being on. It's been a pleasure. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.
Ooh, 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 ooh.